You walk into rooms and immediately see the power dynamics, hidden alliances, quiet betrayals. You see the whole game board, while everyone else is still reading the rules. But what do? You smile, nod, make self-deprecating jokes. You let them think you're the awkward one who doesn't quite get it. This isn't modesty or shyness. This is the calculated performance of the wise fool. It's a strategic lie that you use to disarm targets, gather intelligence, and stay in control without starting wars. What looks like social anxiety is actually high-level psychological warfare. Before we start, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss any of our weekly deep dives into the world of personality types. And if you're looking for a deeper understanding of yourself and your INFJ personality, browse our favorite INFJ products in the description, and click the link in the comments to take our favorite free personality test. The disarming performance. Society punishes depth. The moment people feel threatened by your intelligence, they start trying to shrink you. They misread you on purpose. They turn your honesty into a problem. They make your perception feel like an attack on their comfort. So you learn to do the opposite. You make yourself safe to underestimate. The wise fool removes you from the competitive radar entirely. When you play smaller on the surface, people stop seeing you as a threat. They stop performing around you. They stop guarding their real thoughts. And that's when the magic happens, because relaxed people reveal everything. You've mastered self-deprecating humor as a smoke bomb. It fills the room with harmlessness, with humility, with "I'm not a threat." While everyone is breathing easier, you're still watching, still tracking, still choosing your next move with quiet precision. "Maybe I'm overthinking this" becomes your exit ramp. You get to deliver the truth and still leave yourself an out if someone tries to challenge you. Not because you're wrong about what you noticed. You know exactly what you saw. But you've learned that being right too often makes people uncomfortable. They call you intense when you name what's happening directly. They act like you're the problem for noticing patterns. So you wrap truth in something lighter, a casual observation, a half smile that says it's not that deep, while your eyes say it absolutely is. And the strangest part? They let you. They let the fool speak. They let the harmless one say what the brave one would get attacked for saying. You make it sound like a passing thought, like you're not keeping score, like you're not reading the room like a detailed map. Everyone relaxes. They laugh. They nod. They move on because they think the moment's gone. But later, when they're alone, it comes back, because your joke wasn't random. It was accurate. It was a mirror held up for half a second, just long enough for the right person to see themselves clearly. You're not insulting yourself when you play this role. You're controlling the temperature. Because you don't need to dominate people to understand them. You just need them to stop performing long enough to show you what's real. The performance works because it's counterintuitive. Most people try to establish dominance through displays of intelligence, through corrections, through proving they're the smartest voice in the room. But you've discovered something more powerful. When you let others feel superior, they get careless. They overextend. They reveal patterns they never meant to show. Playing smaller becomes your superpower, because it's not actually smaller. It's strategic positioning. You're not behind in the conversation. You're ahead of the entire game. While they're fighting for attention and validation, you're collecting data. While they're trying to impress each other, you're learning exactly who they are when they think nobody important is watching. The wise fool persona isn't about lacking confidence. It's about having so much confidence that you don't need external validation to feel powerful. You'd rather observe than perform. You'd rather understand than be understood. You'd rather let someone feel clever for 5 minutes than reveal your full depth to someone who would only try to compete with it. This is why the performance feels almost forbidden to discuss. Because once you see it clearly, you realize how calculated it actually is. You're not the innocent, awkward one stumbling through social situations. You're the strategist who learned that the best way to win is to make sure nobody realizes you're playing. And once their defenses are completely down, once they've shown you their real selves, the quiet interrogation begins. The quiet interrogation. You don't come at people like a detective. You don't point fingers or corner them with accusations. You don't raise your voice and demand clarity like you're owed an explanation. You just tilt your head a little, let your tone stay soft, almost curious, like you're genuinely trying to understand. And that's exactly why it works. Your questions don't sound like weapons. They sound like space, like genuine curiosity wrapped in patience. Walk me through that. Why did you choose that specifically? What did you mean when you said it like that? Simple words, clean words. But you're not asking for information the way most people ask. You're watching what happens to their story when it has to stand up on its own. You're watching whether they answer the question or perform around it, whether they clarify or dodge, whether they get irritated at your calmness, because calmness makes lying feel lonely. And the longer you stay gentle, the more their mask starts to slip. People expect a fight. They prepare for conflict. They rehearse defenses. They sharpen their excuses. But you don't give them that. You give them quiet. You give them patience. And in that patience, they start talking. They fill the silence with extra details they didn't plan to give. They over-explain. They backtrack. They contradict themselves in small ways, not even realizing you're collecting those tiny fractures like fingerprints. Not to punish them, just to see what's true. If they are telling the truth, they feel it too. Your question becomes a doorway instead of a trap. They finally get to be real without being attacked. But if they aren't, your innocent question becomes unbearable, because it's not the question that exposes them. It's the fact that you're not buying the performance. You're not impressed by volume. You're not moved by confidence. You're not hypnotized by charm. You're just listening. And eventually, they confess. Not always with words, sometimes with a sigh, a shift in tone, a flash of annoyance. A moment where they realize you can't be steered. And you don't even smile about it. You just nod, like you already knew. The beauty of this approach is that you never have to prove anything. You never have to build a case, or present evidence, or convince anyone else of what you've discovered. You just ask one more gentle question, and watch them unravel their own story. "I'm confused. Help me understand," becomes your most powerful tool, because it forces them to explain the unexplainable, to justify the unjustifiable, to make sense of something that only makes sense if they admit what they're actually doing. Your voice stays warm. Your eyes stay kind. But underneath, you're running diagnostics on every word, every pause, every defensive reaction. You're noting which parts of their story they rush through and which parts they elaborate on. You're tracking where they look when they're thinking versus where they look when they're calculating. Most people miss these details because they're too busy preparing their own response. But you're not preparing anything. You're just receiving. You're just creating space for truth to surface naturally. And the most powerful part? You never use what you discover as a weapon. You don't expose people publicly. You don't shame them or punish them or make them pay for lying to you. You just adjust accordingly. You step half a foot back emotionally. You stop offering access. You stop feeding the parts of them that only light up when you're useful. And they never see it coming because you never announce it. You're not loud about your intelligence. You're not flashy about your boundaries. You're not dramatic about your exits. You just become impossible to manipulate because you've seen exactly who they are when they think nobody important is watching. The quiet interrogation isn't about catching people in lies. It's about understanding the truth clearly enough to protect yourself wisely. The character test, through kindness. But the most sophisticated part of the wise fool strategy isn't the questions or the performance. It's what happens when you give people chances that look like softness, but are actually tests. You don't call it a test out loud. You'd never sit there thinking, let me see if this person is worthy. That's not how it feels inside you. Inside you, it feels like hope. Like giving the world one more chance to surprise you in a good way. So you stay gentle. You keep your tone warm. Even when something feels off, you give them an extra day to respond. You accept the, sorry I've been busy, without making them pay for it. You let the awkward moment pass without turning it into a courtroom. You offer second chances, third chances, benefit of the doubt, wrapped in patience. And people think that means you didn't notice. But you noticed. You always notice. You're just watching what they do with your kindness once they realize it's real. Because there are two kinds of people in this world. The ones who become more careful with you when they realize you're soft, and the ones who become bolder. The ones who see your gentleness as something precious to protect, and the ones who see it as something convenient to exploit. The second type starts testing how much you'll tolerate, how long you'll wait, how many times you'll forgive a pattern as if it was an accident. They show up only when they need comfort, advice, reassurance, then disappear the moment you need anything back. Your patience becomes their permission slip. Your empathy gets treated like a resource instead of a relationship. You notice if they become respectful, or if they start taking liberties. You notice if your softness makes them gentler, or if it makes them greedier. You notice who starts showing up late, canceling plans, forgetting promises, or treating your time like it's infinitely flexible because you've never complained before. The test isn't designed to catch people being terrible. It's designed to see who they actually are when they think there are no consequences for their choices. When they think your kindness means you have no limits. When they think being nice is the same thing as being weak. You watch what they do with access once they have it. Do they treasure it or abuse it? Do they reciprocate or just consume? Do they remember that you're human too? Or do they start treating you like a service they've subscribed to? And here's the part that separates you from people who are genuinely naive. You don't keep giving chances forever. You don't convince yourself that this time will be different. You don't make excuses for patterns that have already shown themselves clearly. You just stop. Not with drama, not with announcements, not with long explanations about how disappointed you are. You don't blow up or shame them or post quotes online about betrayal. You just withdraw access quietly and finally. You stop explaining yourself to someone who only listens when it benefits them. You stop initiating conversations. You stop offering the version of you that makes their life easier. You become polite, distant, busy in a way that isn't performative. It's final. Because you've learned something painful but necessary. If someone is willing to exploit your softness, they will never respect your boundaries until you enforce them. And you enforce them quietly, not as revenge, but as clarity. The character test through kindness isn't manipulation. It's protection. It's you giving people enough rope to show you whether they're safe or whether they're simply comfortable. Whether they value the relationship or just the benefits it provides. And that's why it hits people like a sudden cold front when the access finally stops. They thought your kindness meant you had no limits. They thought you'd always be there. They don't realize that the nice part was you gathering evidence with your heart open. And once you have enough evidence, you don't fight. You don't argue. You don't try to teach them lessons about respect. You just stop letting certain energy reach you. The shift is so clean, so final, that it leaves people wondering when exactly the door closed. And that brings us to the moment that confuses them most. The boundary whiplash. The moment someone crosses that final line, something shifts in you that feels almost supernatural. Not anger, not emotion, just finality. Like a door closing with a clean click that echoes through the entire relationship. Your voice doesn't get louder, it gets quieter. Your eyes don't flash with fury, they get steadier. Your sentences don't get longer and more explanatory, they get shorter and more absolute. No, I'm not available for this. Don't do that. The words land with the weight of stone because there's no negotiation in them, no room for debate, no invitation to convince you otherwise. And people feel that shift like a sudden drop in temperature because they've never heard that tone from you before. This is the whiplash that breaks their understanding of who you are. For weeks, maybe months, you've been the flexible one, the understanding one, the one who makes exceptions and gives second chances and finds ways to work around other people's limitations. You've been soft, accommodating, endlessly patient with their excuses and their patterns and their small disrespects that they thought you didn't notice. They mistake your kindness for permission. They think your gentleness means you're weak. They assume your patience is unlimited because you've never shown them otherwise. So they keep pushing, keep testing, keep taking a little more than they give back until the line appears. And when it appears, it's not drawn in anger or frustration. It's not accompanied by long speeches about how disappointed you are or how they've let you down. There's no drama, no scene, no emotional spillover. Just a quiet, non-negotiable boundary that feels like it materialized out of nowhere. But it didn't come from nowhere. You've been tracking every small violation, every casual disrespect, every moment they chose their convenience over your comfort. You've been giving them chances to course correct, to notice what they were doing, to choose differently. And they didn't. So the boundary doesn't feel like a reaction. It feels like a conclusion. The whiplash happens because they thought they knew the rules of engagement with you. They thought they understood your limits because you'd never enforced any. They thought your warmth was unconditional because you'd never made it conditional before. But your warmth was never unconditional. It was just waiting for enough data to make an informed decision. And now that you have that data, the decision is final. Not cruel, not punitive, just protective. You stop explaining yourself to someone who only listens when it benefits them. You stop making yourself available to someone who only shows up when they need something. You stop investing energy in someone who treats your heart like a renewable resource. The shift is so clean, so complete, that it leaves them scrambling to understand what happened. They remember you as endlessly flexible, endlessly forgiving, endlessly there. Now suddenly you're not. Now suddenly there are rules they can't bend, and access they can't regain, and a version of you they can't reach anymore. They try the old approaches. They test whether the boundary is real or just temporary. They push a little, expecting you to soften like you always have before. But you don't soften. You don't explain. You don't negotiate. You just hold the line with a calm that feels almost otherworldly. This is what confuses them most. They expected anger they could argue with, emotion they could manipulate, drama they could turn into a scene where they get to be the victim. But you don't give them any of that. You just stop letting certain energy reach you. You don't punish them. You don't try to teach them lessons about respect. You don't make them pay for their mistakes. You just withdraw access quietly and completely, like you're protecting something precious that they proved they couldn't handle safely. The boundary whiplash isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's you finally honoring what you've always known but were too kind to act on. It's you choosing your own peace over their comfort. It's you refusing to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. And once that boundary is there, it doesn't move. Because you're not drawing lines to start negotiations, you're drawing them to end patterns that were never serving anyone, including them. Winning outcomes, not arguments. You've never been addicted to the moment. You don't need to own someone in front of an audience. You don't need the last word. You don't even need to be understood immediately. Because you've learned something most people never learn. Winning an argument is cheap. Outcomes are everything. So you can sit through a conversation where someone talks over you, twists the narrative, tries to bait you into reacting. And you stay calm. You let them have their little victory lap. You watch them smile like they've pinned you down. And you don't fight for the spotlight, because while they're busy trying to win the scene, you're adjusting the story. You're clocking who's actually listening, who's uncomfortable, who's silently disagreeing, who's only clapping because they're afraid to be the next target. You're noticing the cracks in the performance, the places where people's faces don't match their words. And you're making decisions, quiet decisions, the kind that don't announce themselves until later. Maybe you stop volunteering information to the person who keeps weaponizing it. Maybe you shift your energy towards someone who's consistently safe. Maybe you stop arguing and start documenting. Maybe you stop trying to change someone's mind and instead change your proximity to them. How often you show up, how much access they have, how much influence they're allowed. You don't punish, you restructure. And that's why it feels like you outsmart people. because you're not playing on the same level they are. They're fighting for attention. You're building leverage. They're trying to win today. You're protecting next month. So when the dust settles, something is different. The group dynamic is different. The power balance is different. The person who thought they controlled you suddenly can't get a reaction, can't get information, can't get closeness. And they don't even know when it happened, because you didn't start a war. You just stopped feeding the pattern. That's the wise fool at the highest level. You look calm. You look unbothered. But really, you're rewriting the entire environment so you never have to beg for respect again. You're making quiet moves that don't require anyone's permission or understanding. While others exhaust themselves fighting battles, you're winning wars they don't even know are happening. Not through manipulation or cruelty, but through strategic clarity about what you will and won't allow into your space. You let them think they won the conversation while you redesign the relationship. You let them feel powerful while you become untouchable. You let them have the moment while you control the outcome. The strategic lie isn't manipulation. It's protection and clarity wrapped in wisdom. Your perceived weaknesses are actually your greatest psychological tools. The moment you stop apologizing for your depth and start using it strategically, you become unstoppable. Subscribe for more insights into the INFJ strategic mind. If you want to continue the journey to understanding yourself or an INFJ in your life, click either of the following videos, where we continue to unlock the secrets of the INFJ personality type.